controversial bill here in California, AB 2943, has passed the California Senate. One more trip to the Assembly and then a likely signature from Governor Jerry Brown. It's all about religious freedom, and we'll talk to a vocal critic of this legislation, which is on the eve of passage, as we continue Morning Answer for a Monday. It's 8:30. We'll talk once again here briefly to an old friend of the Morning Answer, an even older friend of mine who...
Yeah, you guys worked together at that other station.
Well, it turns out we didn't work together, but it turns out I know
you
him.
Followed each other closely.
He told me on the air last time he was on that I did a show with the great Louis Anderson, and I left the show. And Jim, we're not going to talk about why I left the show, okay? Let's leave. It had nothing to do with Louis.
Right.
I forgot there's that agreement you had to sign. That's right. We can't talk about
It's called an NDA. He's the new Omarosa.
Actually, I don't even think I had to sign an agreement, but it had nothing to do with Louis Anderson. I love Louis Anderson. So when I left the show, Casino Talk, where Louis would talk about...
Which was odd. You've never been to a casino before, Brian, so you had to dig deep to do that show, right?
I had no personal experience to draw from.
But Louis Anderson, he would talk about blackjack and slots and Vegas. I love to gamble.
So after I exited the program, Jim Breslo came along, and so we have a kindred spirit here.
I love it.
Jim is now doing a great podcast called The Hidden Truth. It's a podcast series, and you dive into things like the shooting in Las Vegas, and there's a conspiracy. I sense, I haven't heard the podcast, forgive me, my friend, but I'm certainly going to hear it. I get the sense there's sort of a conspiracy kind of vibe on the podcast. But is that true quickly in 10 seconds?
Because of the Las Vegas shooting subject, there's lots of conspiracies, theories regarding the Las Vegas subject. So we got a lot of people following that show that were really wondering what really happened here, what was behind this. You know, what we see does not appear to be matching with what we're hearing.
The subject matter brings in the conspiracy element, probably.
Right, but no, the show is not a conspiracy show by any stretch.
Okay, Jim Breslo, thanks for the distinction, my friend. It's called The Hidden Truth Podcast, and Jim's a very talented guy and a very funny and entertaining guy, and it's, if you're a podcast listener, Hidden Truth is one you should check out, because I think Jim will, and I know he'll entertain you for sure. He's back on the Morning Answer to talk about something we've been talking about on this program for months now, AB 2943, California Assembly Bill 2943, which has to do with religious freedom. And we'll talk about some of the components of religious freedom that critics and supporters believe will be impacted by the passage of this bill. Now, suffice to say, since the last time we talked, a couple of things have happened. The bill has passed the California Senate. Previously, it passed the Assembly. Here's the timeline. AB 2943 goes back to the Assembly. It's just protocol, procedure. Goes back to the Assembly, and likely they green light it one more time, and then boom, it's on the desk of Governor Jerry Brown, who's given an indication, Jim Breslo, and of course my partner Jennifer, that he will sign this legislation. Jim, what is the most disturbing element? Be specific. The most disturbing element of this California Assembly bill that makes you such a vocal critic?
Yeah, and for me, it's not necessarily about religion. It's about personal freedom, about having the choice to make your own decisions regarding how you live your life and what treatment you choose to seek. So basically, this will shut down an adult's decision that he wants to go seek treatment for unwanted feelings of attraction to the opposite sex or unwanted transgender feeling. So it's okay if you want to go to see a therapist to affirm your transgender feelings. It's okay to get drugs and surgery for your transgender, but it's not okay to seek counseling regarding your transgender feelings.
Well,
and that's the part that really concerns me.
Okay, but the counseling you're referring to, just a point of fact, correct me if I'm wrong, the counseling you're referring to is paid counseling, even if it's $10 to keep the lights on, from a minister, from a religious person. There is a difference in content. The content of the counseling from a faith leader will be different from the content of counseling from a science-based therapist.
Well, again, you're not allowed to go to any type of therapist on this. It's really not religious-based. But if you happen to want to go for religious reasons and seek therapy, you're not allowed. I mean, what more denial of religious freedom is it that for religious reasons you don't want to live your life as a homosexual or as a transgender person because you think it's against your faith?
I agree with you, Jim. Yeah, Jim, I agree with you. I believe in the First Amendment. I'm a proud liberal, and I believe in religious freedom. If an adult person, I'm not talking about dragging your 10-year-old to your minister to talk about his or her or your 15 or 16-year-old's preferences in terms of intimate relationships. I agree with you. I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in religious freedom. If an adult person wants to go see their pastor, their rabbi, whomever it is, a faith leader, to have counseling on issues of a sexual nature, and this is what we're talking about. We're all adults here. I would see no reason in America why that should not be allowed.
Well, but in California, the state of California now says that, and most likely Governor Brown, I think, Jim, you'll agree, is expected to sign this. He said as much, that he would sign this. And I think a lot of critics of this are using fear tactics, Jim, and I'm interested in getting your take on the other side. They're calling this conversion therapy. And when I hear that, I think when anybody hears that, naturally you think of somebody putting like a helmet on you and zapping the homosexuality out of you. That's not the case here. These are people who are willingly wanting to pursue counsel for feelings that they don't feel, that they're confused about. I mean, they're just having confusing feelings, and you can't go talk to a clergy member or someone, a therapist, and pay for this if you're having these feelings. Don't you think that there's a lot of fear being used by the other side here, Jim?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They're talking about electric shock therapies.
Right.
They're talking about shame therapy. These are therapies that are already not permitted in the state of California. Our most recent guest was one of the leading experts in providing this therapy, and what the therapy really goes to is it looks for childhood trauma, and what they have found uniformly with the people that come in wanting therapy is they go in, and in each case they found some type of childhood trauma that has been the driving factor for this. And look, most experts say that it's a combination of nature and nurture. Whether you're talking about homosexuality or transgender, there's no evidence that you're born this way. If there were conclusive evidence that you're born this way, then perhaps this therapy shouldn't be permitted. But leading experts say it's a combination of nature and nurture.
Okay.
And the nurture side of it usually happens at a very young age, and that's what this therapy uncovers.
We're talking about California Assembly Bill 2943 passing the Senate, going back to the Assembly, and then to the governor's office. I'm going to spice it up here in the minute and a half we have remaining. I'd say to you first, my friend, I have 2 quick points, and then somebody will have the last word because I don't need the last word. To you, Jim, I would say, my friend, I don't know one person, and I'm sure, and I doubt you know one person who would choose to live a life that is ridiculed, who would choose to live a life that has been historically persecuted. I don't know anyone who would choose to live a life that makes you the butt of jokes in locker rooms and in boardrooms across America. I don't know anyone who would choose that lifestyle. I'll say that, and then I'll ask a question, and then, Jim, you and Jennifer have the final exchange here. I'll be quiet. Jennifer mentioned fear, and there seems to be fear of this bill passing, and there is fear, I think. There is fear that religious freedom will be taken away from Californians, and I appreciate that. And that's why I stand in opposition, certainly, of that component of this bill. But you want to talk about fear. If you're going or sending a loved one to a faith leader or to a therapist or to a psychiatrist to make you no longer be gay, if society has pressured you as a lesbian woman to go see a professional to talk the lesbian out of you, boy, that sure is indicative of a society that fears gay people, isn't it?
These are people that are choosing to go. This is not about you sending your uncle or whoever. These are about people who are making choices, and they're confused,
and I'm saying
they want to seek counsel.
And I'm saying the compelling reason is that we live in a society that still I think our conversation here demonstrates that there is still a healthy fear of men attracted to men and women attracted to women.
I actually disagree. Maybe with our age.
Why would there be a cottage industry to convert them if everybody was just fine with their preference?
See, Jim, and I want you to be able to chime in on this, but I would just add in here simply that I know a lot of kids who are now very happy, who choose to identify as something other than heterosexual or even gay. They choose to either identify as transgender or pansexual. That's something new. And I do think that that's actually celebrated now more than anything. I don't think it's feared, especially in California.
Yeah.
Jim, you're researching it. What do you think?
Well, and I would add that you're right. It's not a choice, but what they are discovering is that things that happen very, very early childhood trauma can drive sexual feelings, sexual orientation feelings, and gender identity feelings, and they're finding a direct connection between this. So if they can go back and heal childhood traumas, and it has the effect of affecting their sexual orientation or their gender identity, and they want to get that treatment, that absolutely should be permitted. I remember the days when we used to say, it's a free country. Well, if Jerry Brown signs this bill, he's confirmed 100% it's no longer a free country. He's a 60s liberal. He needs to prove that he's still a liberal.
Jim Breslo.
Personal freedom, not just religious freedom.
Okay, Jim, creator, host of the weekly Hidden Truth podcast series. Jim Breslo is a great guy, very talented guy. Be sure to check out the Hidden Truth podcast series. Thanks for being such a resource on AB 2943. I know we'll talk to you again as this bill gets closer to Governor Jerry Brown's desk. Hope you have a great day, my friend, and we'll talk real soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate it. Good to have you, Jim, as always, as we continue on your Morning Answer.